Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 84. SSS Grade Talent. Part 4. The greatest good person can turn into the worst killer at any time. This was a sentence that described Guam Divine Doctor in Ways of Survival. Guam Divine Dr. Hyo Jun. According to the records in Ways of Survival, the task that Hyo Jun devoted his last years to wasn't medicine but poison. Like many great people who later became constellations, Hyo Jun reached a level beyond the actual history records. If I make a poison that can kill anyone, I can make a pill that can save anyone. Hyo Jun was banished after the death of King Seonjo and devoted his last 7 years to this question. Why was poison a medicine for some people and a poison for others? One day in his last years, he finally reached a mystical answer. It isn't the body but the spirit that determines the action of the poison. A poison made by analyzing 1,000 souls. The result was the heavenly poison that flowed out of Lee Sealwa's body, the 1,000 spirits poison. Donggue Bogum was actually written from Hyo Jun's failure to reach 1,000 spirits poison. Kiek. I moved through the 1,000 spirits poison and dealt a merciless blow to Lee Sealwa. Lee Sealwa flew through the air. It wasn't hard to defeat Lee Sealwa if her poison was disabled. It was the 1,000 spirits poison that solidified her reputation as one of the 10 evils. If I hadn't got the Donggue Bogum, I would have become a sacrifice of her reputation. This time her luck was bad. The constellation Guam Divine Doctor is looking at you like he is sorry. The constellation Guam Divine Doctor is looking forward to you dealing with this properly. 300 coins have been sponsored. The parasite infection was irrelevant to Guam Divine Doctor's intentions. In other words, Lee Sealwa's attack on me wasn't according to Lee Sealwa's will. By the way, only sponsoring 300 coins. The constellation Coaeil Pill is looking forward to you dealing with this properly. The constellation Bald General of Justice expects you to do your best. 300 coins have been sponsored. I ignored the response of the constellations and approached Lee Sealwa. Lee Sealwa crawled across the ground with fear. I could feel Yu Jonghyuk's gaze in the distance. Yu Jonghyuk would probably be hurt badly if Lee Sealwa died here. I looked at the fallen Lee Sealwa and opened my mouth. Hey! To be exact, I spoke to Parasite Antinous inside her. It would be good if you come out. Kick? It isn't too late now. Return to your duties as a guide. Teach people skills and get along with them. If you work hard, maybe you can become a constellation one day? The Parasite Queen, Antinous, was a strong hero. It wasn't possible for her to exert all her strength because she was restricted by the probabilities. It wasn't impossible for her to become a constellation if she continued to be a guide and accumulated history. You humans. I hate. The problem was that she thought of humans as enemies. It was also a mortal enemy. I glanced at the disaster meteorite that was intermittently shaking. I am sorry that your world was destroyed. But is it necessary to destroy this world? Are you going to reproduce the same tragedy here? All of you will die. I watched the smiling Antinous and sighed. If she didn't go out on her own, I would have to force her out. In fact, I didn't want to use this method. It wasn't just due to the pain Lee Sealwa would go to. I didn't want the burden of dealing with Antinous after she left the body. I glanced up at the sky. The constellations of the Korean peninsula. I owed them a debt last time, so this time I had to make a concession. The special option of Donggue Bogum, Incomplete, has been activated. Donggue Bogum, Incomplete has conveyed the essence of Oriental medicine to you. I had an incomplete version of Donggue Bogum, so I couldn't do miracles like making a powerful poison or saving a dying person. However, I could do simple treatments. For example, taking a parasite out of a body. Her body had to be bound for a smooth treatment, so I held Lee Sealwa's arms from behind, holding her to the ground. It was a misleading position, but her consciousness was buried deep inside her. Common sense told me not to go after Yu Jonghyuk's ex-girlfriend unless I was a madman. Especially in front of Yu Jonghyuk's eyes. The exclusive skill hit a pressure point LV2 is activated. I started to press at different pressure points on Lee Seolwa's body. Soon after, her skin turned red and I planted a needle made of magic power into her reacting blood. It was my first time doing this, so I didn't know if it would work. Quiet. It hurts. It hurts. Lee Seolwa howled loudly. I ignored her and kept pressing the pressure points. Quiet. Kiget. Kayak. Then Lee Seolwa's screams gradually changed. It changed from the cry of an insect to a human voice. The mysterious thing was using Oriental medicine to remove a parasite from the body. I was embarrassed that a person who had relied on Western medicine so far was now practicing Eastern medicine. The essence of Oriental medicine is effective. The constellation Guam Divine Doctor is looking at you with a warm expression. I got up while Lee Seolwa gasped for breath. Yellow mucus was flowing from the glands in her body where poison had been secreted. The mucus was the main body of a parasite. K. Quack. This would have satisfied the constellations. The constellation Guam Divine Doctor thanks you for your good deed. 500 coins have been sponsored. Lee Seolwa's eyes slowly opened. Consciousness had returned to her eyes, but there was still no focus. It was because she had been infected with a parasite not long ago. She wouldn't be able to see my face right now with her 5 senses half dead. You, who are you? I was well aware of the events that would happen if I answered this question. A similar thing happened when Yu Jonghyuk saved Lee Seolwa in other rounds. That's why the important thing wasn't my identity. I was sent by Yu Jonghyuk. Kim Dokja. Don't do anything unnecessary. Yu Jonghyuk's angry voice pierced my ears. Lee Seolwa's expression changed. Yu Jonghyuk? Who is that? You will soon find out. Poisoner Lee Seolwa had to become part of Yu Jonghyuk's group. After the prophets appeared and the absolute throne broke, the flow of this world was slowly changing from what I knew. It was difficult to make the mistakes of the original, but it was also hard to see the future that I didn't know. That's why it was necessary to balance the important events directly. Some things flowed the same, while others flowed differently. There were twists and turns, but in any case, I thought that this round was approaching the ideal approximation that I was thinking of. And the poisoner? No, immortal Dr. Lee Seolwa could be one of the greatest set points of this approximation. Kim Dokja, this side is done. I turned around and saw Han Soo-young and Yu Sanga approaching this way. Amazing. The two of them swept up that many people? It might be a situation where the poisoner was missing, but they were still the poisoner's group. The original plan became meaningless. The two of them might be comparable to Lee Jaihai's ghost fleet and Gong Pilda's armed zone. Wait, don't come over here. I had to restrain their movements. It was difficult if they didn't have immunity to being infected. This fight hadn't ended yet. Kiet, human. The mucus that escaped from Lee Seolwa's body gathered in a ball at one point in the air. Parasite Queen Antinous. She was scary in parasitic mode, but even scarier when she didn't have a host. The mucus moved like a small bug and formed a shape. It was a body made of nutrients that had been absorbed for many years. It was a body with beautiful curves and solid muscles. She had dragonfly-like wings and a tail that resembled a scorpion. She was covered in an insect's shell apart from the face, but she looked more like a bipedal creature than an insect. The real battle started now. Get away before you are infected. The sharp tail aimed for my stomach. The effect of the Dongue Bagum, incomplete, has been activated. Your body is immune from a parasitic infection. It was so fast I couldn't avoid it despite having over 50 agility. I narrowly caught the tail before it pierced me. But if it hit, I would have definitely got a hole in my stomach. Kick. She used the fact that I was holding her tail to fly towards me and hit me. I was knocked onto the ground and a strong pain filled my body. Strong. She became even stronger when she wasn't in a host. The power of her main body was comparable to a 5th-grade insect king species. Once Antinous unleashed her fighting power, it was equivalent to the degraded fire dragon I once killed. It might be destroyed, but she was still the hero of her world. She was as strong as Lycaon, who emerged from the yellow meteorite. This didn't mean I had no chance. It was a clear violation of the scenario rules for the guide to cause such an uproar before the 5th scenario ended. It wasn't just killing a few people. She even tried to hatch a disaster, which meant she had given up on her probability. The sign of a probability storm was already descending on Antinous' body. As time passed, the collapse of her body would accelerate, even if I didn't attack. It was a fight I could win if I just bought time. Key it. The problem was how much time I could buy before dying. At this moment, the protection symbol of the Immuntar started shaking. Ah, that's right. There was this. I held my aching body and said to her, "I'm sorry, but I'm not your opponent." As I spoke, a flash of silver light crossed the sky, causing a sonic boom. The gorgeous mane scattered in the air as something landed in front of me with a loud roar. The being was over 3 meters tall. Lycaon, Prince of the Immuntar, stood up. "I'm sorry for the delay, Protector." Chapter 85. SSS Grade Talent. Part 5. Prince Lycaon of the Immuntar paid respect to me before immediately turning to look at Antinous. I couldn't feel reassured because the other world species were companions. Antinous. Lycaon. What the hell is this? The queen of the parasites just laughed. Have you forgotten your mission? Why are you fighting the humans of this world? Kikik, mission? Was there something like that? Lycaon's expression became determined at her teasing tone. We are the guides. We have to tell the people of the other worlds the right way to face the disasters that are coming. You have already been spellbound by the Dakibis. Wake up, Lycaon. You are the one who needs to wake up Antinous. Lycaon's voice was furious. Have you forgotten the sacrifice of the Kronos warriors? Have you already forgotten the moment when the 5 ruling species was destroyed? We are here to stop the disasters. Work with the species here to defend the terraformed planet and rebuild Kronos civilization in this world. It is our sacred mission. Rebuilding Kronos civilization. Antinous no longer laughed. Lycaon, it is impossible. This planet will perish. It is the fate of the scenario. No, this time will be different. Lycaon glanced at me. The Protector has stopped a disaster before all the disasters woke up. He has the medallion of my people as proof. Perhaps there is a way to prevent the destruction. If it was a deteriorated disaster, we could have stopped it at any time. Earth is now only in the 5th scenario. There is no planet that has stopped a disaster before the 5th scenario began. Think about it, Antinous. There is still hope for this planet. Antinous' compound eyes slowly blinked. The cry of an insect was boiling inside her. Her cry was full of anger. Don't be so arrogant. You came here to stop the disaster? If you really wanted to help them, why didn't you start when the disaster's destination was set to Earth? That. Han Suyang quietly approached me while listening to their story. These guys, what are they saying now? Han Suyang didn't know the details of this scenario. The guides didn't have such an in-depth conversation in the original 3rd and 4th regression. Now they were talking about something vague. Antinous continued speaking. Lycaon. You are like me. We came to this planet for revenge. We will return the same disaster to those who brought us the disaster. If you do that, you will die. The probability of the star stream won't forgive the guide for going against it. Antinous laughed. Lycaon, I died with my kind on Kronos. It doesn't make sense. Lycaon exposed his fangs. Antinous. The conversation ends here. Kikikik. Lycaon. Poor wolf of the Immuntar. Have you forgotten the history of Kronos? The wolf has never once won against the insects. The battle between the prince of the wolves and queen of the parasites began. Grrrr! Lycaon roared. The flow of ambient air was different. Some winds were fast while some winds were slow. Sometimes there was no wind and sometimes it was strong wind. I'm not the Immuntar you knew. The winds in the surrounding area started to press on Antinous. Lycaon was finally showing his way of the wind that had evolved one step. Kayat, interesting. I'll check to see how your way has grown. Antinous was the first one to move. The air barrier created by way of the wind and Antinous' tail hit each other. Sparks filled the air and the sound of leather tearing was heard. Han Suyang and I looked up at the sky, spellbound for a moment. This was the fight between 5th grade species. It was the confrontation of those who showed a superior physique to humans. Antinous quickly made her way through the gaps in the atmosphere and arrived in front of Lycaon. Antinous' tail underwent an external transformation into a wedge and rushed to Lycaon. It was only one attack, but it could mean the difference between defeat and victory. But at this moment, Antinous' movement slowed down. It was like a repulsion force was pushing at her tail. Kiyet? On the other hand, Lycaon's movements were slightly faster. His attack suddenly accelerated. Antinous' tail struck empty air. The 5th grade species parasite Antinous has activated accelerating wings LV8. Antinous' wings spread open and vibrated before she disappeared. The S-grade movement skill, accelerating wings. Her wings flapped thousands of times per second and she instantly appeared in front of Lycaon, as if she had teleported. Antinous' arms turned to sides and flew towards Lycaon's back. The 5th grade species parasite Antinous has activated praying mantis breakthrough LV8. The accelerated sides struck the atmosphere wall, causing a terrible burst of noise. It was so fast that it seemed like even Lycaon couldn't avoid it. Even so, Lycaon evaded. At the decisive moment, Antinous' attack slowed down while Lycaon's movements accelerated. It was the difference between life and death. Antinous' compound eyes blinked with surprise. Yusanga asked with surprise, "What type of technique is that? Instant acceleration?" "No, that is the way of the wind. The secret technique of the Immuntar, way of the wind." At first glance, the two of them seemed to change speed, but this was actually Lycaon's ability. The surrounding atmosphere flowed according to Lycaon's will. "Kit, this damn wind." Antinous also noticed. There was wind on the path that she moved. Antinous was caught in the wind and Lycaon used the wind. It was a skill that controlled the movements of accelerating wings while avoiding Antinous' praying mantis breakthrough. The roads made of wind could be used for evasion or to attack. This was why I needed this skill. If I learned Way of the Wind, I could replace the necessary skills with that one skill. Lycaon roared. "Queen of insects! Kneel in front of the wind." The wolves of the wind. The sharp claws of the wind tore at her wings, while a gale-like kick hit her abdomen. His blow was filled with the wind's acceleration and struck the upper part of Antinous' shell. Kayak. Antinous lost half of her wings, and she fell down. Perhaps if it wasn't for the enlightenment I gave him, Lycaon wouldn't have been able to defeat Antinous now. I thought it was only good for others, but it turned out to be helpful for me. The sign of a probability storm on Antinous' body became stronger. Kayat. It won't end like this. Antinous attempted a landing with half her wings. Kim Dokja. Kill her. Quickly. I was already running towards Antinous when I heard Yu Jonghyuk's voice. Blade of Faith is activated. It was possible to be caught up in her probability storm, but that wasn't important right now. My world, my race, my children. She was heading in the direction of the disaster meteorite. The cost of destroying my world, I will absolutely make you pay it. She shot all her magic power towards the disaster meteorite. Lycaon ran to block the magic power while I swung the fire property Blade of Faith towards Antinous' neck. The insect's mouth became a smile of ridicule. Was it blocked? I turned my head and saw Lycaon's pale face. Grr. Protector, sorry. Then all sound disappeared. Light burst from the disaster meteorite and a huge explosion struck me. One of the fragments of the exploded meteorite struck my head. The world shook. Lycaon flew away from the explosion. The guide couldn't withstand the force of this disaster. It was impossible to rewrite the history of defeat. The balance of the world was collapsing. You have failed to clear the scenario. The disaster of questions has come to your world. My vision darkened and I was buried under a pile of shattered building fragments. I barely came to my senses when Yu Jonghyuk's voice rang in my ears. Kim Dokja. Wake up. Hurry. Recover your spirit. Get moving. Now you can still stop the disaster. I honestly thought it was too much. I didn't have way of the wind and the disaster of questions had hatched. It was better to consider a different route than to carry out a suicide attack. Yu Jonghyuk opened his mouth like he read my mind. Are you that weak? What? All the words you told me were false. I reflexively raised my body. This bastard. The one who told me not to give up on this world will succumb to a disaster of this degree? Laughter emerged. I had to hear this from Yu Jonghyuk, not anyone else. Suicide wasn't enough to get rid of the shame. Of course not. I was just thinking for a second. The damn Yu Jonghyuk was right. It was too early for me to say that was impossible. I emerged from the pile of building fragments. The 8-meter-tall disaster meteorite had split in two. It was obvious that something had hatched from it. I looked around quickly but couldn't see the disaster. Hey, this is, Han Soo-young approached me with a restless expression. I couldn't see you, Sangha. Then I heard a voice. This place. There was a boy around a dozen steps away. He looked like a high school student. He was completely naked without a stitch of clothing. The boy muttered. This is, perhaps? The boy stretched and looked around like he couldn't believe it. I listened to his murmurs and thought that I had to kill him right now. However, my body couldn't move. An early hatching has weakened the disaster of questions. Due to the early hatching penalty, you won't be able to attack the disaster of questions for 3 minutes. Damn it. We were the ones being penalized? That Dakibi scum, what was he doing? The boy walked around the area and arrived in front of a woman nearby. It was a woman who was part of the poisoners group. The boy shouted in a clear voice towards the woman. Woman. Hey, are you okay? You, who? Excuse me, can I ask you something? No. She shouldn't answer that question. I wanted to shout, but my voice didn't come out. Where is this place? What year is it now? Why all of a sudden? Are you asking me a question back? The boy's strange tone seemed to bewitch the woman. This is Seoul and the current year. A system message was heard the moment the woman answered. The first question has been resolved. The first seal of the returnee Myung Ilsang has been released. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. What is that? The boy laughed wildly at the confused woman and asked, do you know how much I suffered? Do you know? Huh? Have you lived for 100 years? In a place where I was the only human. Do you know that there are other dimensions? Other dimension? Disgusting insects, werewolves, and bird people. I have a problem. Can you guess what it is? The confused woman shut her mouth. The boy asked, insects, wolves, birds. Which of these 3 races are the best? What, the best? Once the woman asked, the boy laughed like he was dying with joy. It was a creepy laugh. Then, who among the 3 has the most delicious meat? I listened to the disaster of questions and thought. Yes, it might be natural that Antinous wanted to destroy Earth. It was because a human of Earth destroyed her world. The woman didn't answer the boy's question. Please, spare me. There was a sound and the woman's head flew away. The boy chuckled and looked around. Now, there is this development. What, a S-grade incarnation? Those scum are squeezing this kid. It is also a heavy-duty alliance. No wait, before that. The early hatching penalty has ended. The power that controlled your movements has disappeared. Shit. It was too late. I was about to yell when the boy disappeared and moved to a remote location. Unfortunately, it was a place where another woman was standing. Haha. Nuna is pretty. Yes? I cursed. Yusanga, avoid him. Yusanga raised her dagger and asked cautiously, "Who are you?" The boy grinned at the question. "Are you curious?" The boy's hand grabbed Yusanga's chin at a speed that couldn't be seen. "Should I tell you?" One of the 5 disasters that destroyed Kronos, the disaster of questions. He was a returnee of Earth, transferred back to this world. Chapter 86. SSS Grade Talent. Part 6. Returnee. This was the first statement that mentioned them in ways of survival. Some people go back in time, others go to another dimension, and some are born again. In the end, the way to adapt to destruction varies from person to person. The second method of how to survive in a ruined world. To survive, destroy other dimensions and return. Answer me. Are you curious about my identity? Returnee Myung Ilsang. This boy was a returnee from Earth who was summoned to be a warrior in the world of Kronos. Isn't it normal to blush and lower your eyes in this situation? Nuna is looking straight at me? The disaster of questions was such a bastard. Yusanga opened her mouth. What? Yusanga SSI, don't answer the question. Yusanga's head turned towards me at my words. However, her chin was caught by Myung Ilsang and forced her to look back. Where are you looking? Look at me. Is that your boyfriend? Remove your hand. Yusanga shook off Myung Ilsang's hand. Her dagger moved in a threatening manner through the air. Myung Ilsang laughed. The second question has been resolved. The second seal of the returnee Myung Ilsang has been released. Ah, that's right. I've had a baby face for 100 years. The boy's cold eyes turned towards me. I didn't use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, but it was clear even without the skill. You were having fun in this peaceful world? His right arm aimed at me. At the same time, purple particles condensed around his hand. The character Myung Ilsang has triggered small black fire cannon. Black fire cannon. This was the fire of death that destroyed the eastern part of Kronos and burned all the insect kings in the forest. The whole atmosphere was burning and I was surrounded by flames. Pain spread across my skin. I cursed inside my heart. Damn. It hurt. It really hurt. It hurt. Less than I thought? After a while, the flames turned off and I looked at my skin. Every inch was scorched and painful, but it was a bearable pain. This was the black fire cannon that drove the insect kings to fear? However, the small black fire cannon, it didn't hurt? I looked up and saw Yusanga wielding her dagger. Unexpectedly, she had the advantage. Even the disaster of questions was perplexed by the overwhelming attacks. What? Why are you so strong? Is Nuna also a returnee? Or am I weak? I didn't understand. The original disaster of questions with 2 seals released should be stronger than this. The exclusive skill, character list is activated. Plus. Character information, name, Myung Ilsang. Age, 17 years old, 127 years old. Constellation support, mass production maker. Private attribute, SSS grade warrior, hero, disaster of questions, legend. Exclusive skills, SSS grade growth acceleration LV10, currently LV1, SSS grade swordsmanship LV10, currently LV1, black fire cannon LV9, currently LV1, SSS grade footwork LV10, currently LV1. Stigma, the answer is fixed and you just need to answer LV7, LV2. Overall stats, Physique LV 99, currently LV 55, Strength LV 99, currently LV 55, Agility LV 99, currently LV 60, Magic Power LV 99, currently LV 55. Overall evaluation, the disaster of questions that destroyed Kronos. All stats are sealed due to the current scenario penalty. Every time a seal is released, the stats will rise. Once all seals are released, the real power of the disaster will awaken. If you want to survive, don't answer his questions. But you are still going to die. Plus, I was nervous about the constant SSS filling the screen, but once I read it in detail, I understood why he was weak. The Dakibis were fair. Right now, he was weaker than the original disaster. Han Suyang. Yu Senga SSI. I didn't know if Baihyung was using his strength, but now we had a chance. Attack with all your strength. We must kill him now. If this was his current state, perhaps we could win without Way of the Wind. I poured my remaining coins into my stats. Physique LV 50 to Physique LV 60, Agility LV 50 to Agility LV 60. Magic Power LV 25 to Magic Power LV 60, 39,500 coins have been consumed. All stats have reached the scenario limit. I ran aggressively while activation on Broken Faith. Remember, you should never answer his questions. Myung Ilsang seemed interested when he saw my Blade of Faith. What? An energy sword? My attack missed by a hair's breadth due to his high agility. Myung Ilsang kept chattering. Ajusi, are you a martial artist? How can you use the energy sword already? Isn't this crazy? I ignored him and triggered a stigma. The stigma song of the sword has been used. Your sword is filled with the words left by the Duke of Loyalty and Warfare. A random verse of Duke of Loyalty and Warfare story appeared in front of me, followed by a message. The 28th day. Clear skies. I went to do official business. Then nothing happened. Damn it, the Duke of Loyalty and Warfare didn't help me at this time. The Nanyang Ilji, Yi Sunsen's War Diary, didn't always contain content that fought against the enemy. In fact, most of the contents were ordinary. The sky was clear. The Duke of Loyalty and Warfare went to do official business. If I wrote a destruction diary, my diary would roughly be like this. The sky was dark. Kim Doctor was right. I rolled across the ground to avoid Myung Ilsang's kick. Myung Ilsang's expression gradually became serious. He carefully looked at my Blade of Faith and sighed with relief. Phew, that's right. It isn't a real energy blade. Ajusi, why are you acting like it is? Real? You almost scared me? Brat, you talk too much. It was a cold female voice. While I was stalling for time, Han Suyang made dozens of avatars and they ran towards him. Die. Han Suyang's attacks poured onto the boy whose movements were blocked. However, her attacks weren't strong enough to harm Myung Ilsang's body. Rather, Yu Senga was unable to do any damage due to the excessive number of avatars. Myung Ilsang laughed as he was hit by Han Suyang's small hand. Aren't you also quite pretty? How old are you? A student? Shut up, die. Myung Ilsang's face was marred by the continuous hits. What is wrong with everyone? What did I do wrong? If you see a nice-look fraternity like me, shouldn't you welcome me with open arms? Should I get rid of all the monsters from now on? What a mad dog. Ah, were my words ridiculous? Wait a minute, perhaps you are. Myung Ilsang's expression changed. You guys are from the Hunters Association. Right? Isn't there normally this development? Aren't they always the first one to show up with a returnee comes back? This Chiyuni bastard, no, shit? The third question has been resolved. The fourth question has been resolved. The fifth question has been resolved. The third seal of the returnee Myung Ilsang has been released. Myung Ilsang smiled and nodded. You are from the Hunters Association. It was really crazy. His momentum became even stronger. The surrounding avatars were destroyed by a powerful wave of energy emitted from Myung Ilsang's body. Myung Ilsang burst out laughing. Now, it is the Munchkin's time. Han Soo-young stepped back and glanced at me with an absurd expression. What is with that bastard? I gasped with irritation. Didn't I tell you not to answer him? You are just feeding that jerk. I didn't answer. I just swore. Just don't speak. The point of the questions asked by the disaster of questions wasn't to get an answer. No matter what the answer, he would use it to strengthen his abilities. Myung Ilsang kept speaking, then who should I kill first? But his words didn't last. It was because Usanga appeared behind him while emitting a fierce killing intent. Hermes' walking method. Theseus resolution. Arachne's web. The system messages didn't pop up, but I was able to recognize these skills. In a future scenario called Ragnarok, these skills were clearly described. They were the stigmas of the Olympus-related constellations. The surprised Myung Ilsang unleashed a series of small black fire cannons to keep Usanga in check. However, Usanga rushed towards Myung Ilsang without caring about the black fire cannons. Something like this. It was impossible. As long as they didn't experience a special scenario event, there was no way for an incarnation to simultaneously possess the stigmas of various constellations. It was a situation where I only had 2 stigmas. Then how could Usanga have such a large number of stigmas? Let's try it. Does it hurt? Sweat covered Usanga's forehead. The thread of magic power kept expanding and shrinking. She stepped freely through the air. The dagger pierced without hesitation whenever there was a visible gap. The vitality inside her body was burning. It was an extraordinary change in just 2 days. At this moment, I sensed something. The stigmas of various constellations in one incarnation. There obviously wasn't a single case in Ways of Survival. It didn't even apply to Prophet Anna Croft of the United States. Then Usanga. Doc SSI. Now. Usanga gave the signal and I supported her explosive attack with the Blade of Faith. Han Soo-young also participated. Little by little, Myung Ilsang became dizzy from all the hands and feet. His movements were delayed for a moment and my Blade of Faith aimed at the gap, cutting his shoulder and belly. Shit. Blood flowed out. Myung Ilsang pulled back and chanted something. The character Myung Ilsang has used Blink LV1. Myung Ilsang's figure became blurry. My mind was in a hurry. He couldn't get away. I aimed the blade at his waist. But his body faded away just as the blade hit. The only thing left was scattered blood. The constellation Secretive Plotter lets out a sad sigh. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is going crazy from all the sweet potatoes. Sweet potato is slang for when something is so frustrating that there is a stuffy sensation. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is pointing a finger at your heart. The excitement of some constellations has reached a critical level. Han Soo-young shouted, "Shit, we missed him." It's okay. He is injured, so we can catch him soon. Some constellations have calmed down. Usanga. You did really well. Usanga SSI? There was no answer from Usanga. I headed over because I sensed something strange, where she was standing there stunned. Han Soo-young asked. What's wrong with her? I belatedly realized. Theseus resolution was a skill that drew out all the power of the incarnation. The use of that skill allowed Usanga to deal with a monster for a while. I looked at her for a moment before handing her over to Han Soo-young. Giving another person to me? Am I a daycare center? We need to find the disaster quickly. Shouldn't you scatter more avatars? I think I roughly know where he went. Please guide me. I couldn't miss that guy here. Han Soo-young opened her mouth again. I don't remember well. He becomes stronger every time he answers a question, right? That's right. He is weak at first, but becomes stronger every time he hears an answer. The returnees are too strong, so there is a penalty when they fall into this world. Didn't you see the seals being released? That boy, how many seals does he have? Perhaps dozens. There will be no answer if he releases all of them. So far, 5 seals were released. Fortunately, the additional scenarios of the Dakibis hadn't come down yet. If an additional scenario was released, many people would try to hunt that bastard and his seals would be released in a flash due to the many idiots answering his questions. The moment I was feeling relieved. HRMM. Everyone, aren't you great? Despite the penalty, this is still a disaster. Only 3 people putting pressure on him. Han Soo-young and I looked up at the air at the same time. By the way, aren't you being too greedy? As the old saying goes, you should share the beans. Shit. Han Soo-young cursed while messages arrived like they had been waiting. A new sub-scenario has arrived. The sub-scenario, SSS grade hunt has begun. I grasped the handle of unbroken faith. The situation was reaching the limit.